Tesla's third largest individual shareholder has proposed that Tesla buy back $1 trillion of stock from 2026 to 2030. In this video, I'm going to look into some of the details and share my thoughts. Alright, so Koguan Leo replies to a tweet by Gally, and he says, "Gally, don't be timid. I requested $100 billion in stock buyback from 2022 to 2026, and then $1 trillion, yes, trillion, from 2026 to 2023. Tesla has free cash flow of more than $1 trillion, not from bond offerings, to do buybacks in 2026 to 2030. Can you imagine its market cap would be in 2030? Elon, I, and Optimus shall be dancing trio touring Mars." Alright, for those who don't know, Koguan Leo is the third largest shareholder behind Elon Musk and Larry Ellison, and he's been on my channel in an interview. He's a super smart entrepreneur. He founded one of the largest private companies in the US, and he's one of the most boldest voices on Twitter sharing his purchases, and I think he has about roughly $5 billion worth of Tesla stock now. Alright, what's going on here? So Koguan Leo says he requested $100 billion in stock buybacks over the next 4 years or so. What this means, in my opinion, is that Koguan Leo actually wrote a letter to the board of directors for Tesla. And in that letter, he likely requested that Tesla buy back $100 billion of stock during the next 4 years, and then $1 trillion, yes, with a T, from 2026 to 2030. Now, the big question is, can Tesla afford that amount of stock buyback, especially from the 2026 to 2030 timeline? Koguan Leo seems to be confident that Tesla will be able to afford that. In this video, I'll share some of my thoughts as well. Before going through how Tesla can afford this, let's actually look at this question by Vishal on Twitter. He says, "Sir, what could be the share price by that time? Can you please thrill us with your keypad?" And Koguan Leo does reply, and he says, "Simple math. Assume the average buyback share price is at $1,000 in 2026 to 2030, then $1 trillion equals 1 billion shares times $1,000. Tesla would remove 1 billion out of 3.4 billion shares today, or about 31.8% less. So the total shares outstanding would be about $2.14 billion. So more investors are buying fewer shares, its stock price will shoot up at $3,000 to $5,000. Now, the thing about Koguan Leo is he's not just saying this stuff, he's actually backing it up with real stock purchases. A few days ago, he tweeted, "Now or never, I'm extra bullish after Elon's super heroic Q3 earnings call that Tesla's market cap will be more than Apple and Saudi Aramco combined. He guided 2022 Q4 will be epic, squeezing to buy 10,000 more shares at $212. Now I have 23,191,500 shares plus 10,000. So he has about 23.2 million Tesla shares, and that's roughly about $5 billion. All right, so I've never really thought about Tesla being able to buy back $1 trillion worth of stock from 2026 to 2030. So I have to give credit to Koguan Leo for pushing my thinking to think actually bigger and entertain this idea here. The question though I have is, can Tesla actually afford to buy back $1 trillion of stock? And this is in this decade as well. In my last video, I shared some simple napkin math and how Tesla could possibly reach a $4.5 trillion market cap, as Elon shared in his last earnings call. And the numbers I shared were simple. If Tesla could make 10 million vehicles per year, have an operating profit of $15,000 per vehicle, that would be $150 billion of operating profit per year. And if investors gave a 30 multiple off of that, that would be $4.5 trillion. With a hypothetical $150 billion in operating profit, Tesla could probably use most of that money to do stock buybacks. Tesla doesn't have a ton of capital expenditure needs, so yeah, probably a good 80-90% of that money could be used towards stock buybacks. So let's say Tesla is able to buy back $150 billion of stock per year. Give it 4 or 5 years, that's about $600 to $750 billion, not quite the $1 trillion that Koguan Leo is suggesting. So what kind of math could we suggest here? Well, if FSD is truly successful, then we can boost the operating profit per vehicle that Tesla can get. So let's say Tesla is able to get a $20,000 or even $25,000 operating profit per vehicle. At 10 million vehicles a year, that would boost operating profit to up to $250 billion a year. Spread out over 4 or 5 years, that's $1 trillion to $1.25 trillion. And yes, the math could work out. Tesla could buy back $1 trillion over that period. Now, another way to work out the math is, let's say Optimus, the humanoid robot, actually is a huge success. And let's say Tesla is able to ramp up Optimus faster than most people think. And let's say by 2028, 2029, Tesla is selling Optimus robot, let's say in the tens of millions of units. I don't know. In that case, if Tesla is able to get, let's say $20,000 of operating profit for each humanoid robot, and they sell, let's say, 20 million humanoid robots in 1 year, that would give them $400 billion of operating profit just off of Optimus. And if you spread that out over 4 years, yes, that's well over $1 trillion. Tesla could use that right for stock buybacks. Now, a lot of this math is highly dependent on Tesla's execution. Will Tesla solve FSD? And by solving FSD, how much money or value can Tesla accrue from that? In other words, what will their operating profit per vehicle look like? And an example of the Optimus robot is highly dependent also on timeline. For example, when will Tesla start production on the Optimus humanoid robot? How long will it take? And by what year, will they be able to reach scale of millions or even tens of millions of robots? So a lot of this stuff is highly speculative, and it's actually pretty far out in the future, 5 or 10 years. So a lot could go wrong and it's not guaranteed. However, I think what's interesting about Koguan Leo's comment is he's showing what could possibly go right. In a situation where Tesla is able to solve FSD quickly, let's say they do have a greater than 5-year lead from the competition, and they're able to solve Optimus humanoid robot in a way where the competition is really far behind. In those scenarios, yeah, it could be a possibility that Tesla surprises all of us in terms of how much free cash flow they're able to generate. Here's one more comment that Koguan Leo replies to in his thread. Vishal says, but I feel that Elon Musk must change his behavior outside for Tesla. What is your take? Koguan Leo says, Elon is a rare genius of 1,000 years. He does what a rare genius does. He builds a better future for all. None is left behind. We are with Elon. And then in a tweet last week, Koguan Leo shares, Optimus' mission is to bring abundance to all, so from each to each according to each wishes. Alright, so what's my takeaway from all this? First off, I have to thank Koguan Leo for expanding my thinking here. I didn't think even theoretically that Tesla could have free cash flow power of $1 trillion over a 5-year period this decade. However, working out the napkin math, I do definitely think it's a possibility dependent on many factors and things that Tesla needs to execute well in. Second takeaway is that, yeah, maybe the $1 trillion in stock buybacks doesn't happen, let's say in the 2026 to 2030 time period, and that's fine. But what if it happens in the 2030 to 2040 time period? And what if Koguan Leo's math still works out, where Tesla's able to reduce the share count from $3.14 billion, so let's say roughly $2 billion or even less, then Tesla shareholders are actually able to significantly increase their holdings in the company without actually having to buy extra shares. And it's really a great place for Tesla to be at, even in 2022. They don't need to borrow any money. They have little to no debt, and they're able to use their cash not just for investing, but now they have extra cash laying around, where Elon Musk is now saying they'll probably do a $5 to $10 billion stock back even next year. Third takeaway is a lot of this stuff is dependent on these new technologies like FSD and humanoid robot that are highly dependent on AI, neural networks, and the progress of these technologies. I feel like a lot of people don't have a clear grasp on what's happening in the field of artificial intelligence, how fast it's moving, where it's headed. Rather, people are kind of focused on the macro condition and all of these financial pundits sharing their opinions on where the stock markets go. And in my opinion, I think probably the best use of my own time would be to dive further into artificial intelligence, machine learning, really get into the nitty-gritty, learning more of what Tesla's approach is, how they're executing, and monitoring their progress over time. That's why I think one of the most important things Tesla investors can do is actually get behind the wheel of a full self-driving Tesla and ride it at least once a week for a few hours to track the progress on how fast Tesla is improving FSD and how far out the eventual solution might be. I hope this video has been helpful. If it has, go ahead, like and subscribe.